Hello, hello, and welcome to episode 129 of the Compassion and Cucumbers podcast. I'm Christine.
And I'm Sam.
And, we got some things to talk about.
We usually do.
Yeah. We've been up to some things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been here. We've been there.
Yeah. So let's just, jump into it.
All right. Go for it.
We went to dinner at Strong Hearts in Buffalo.
We sure did. We were heading up to Buffalo on Friday to go to the theater and decided that dinner at Strong Hearts was necessary.
Yeah. What'd we get at Strong Hearts? What'd you get?
I got their chicken parm.
That's right.
Yeah. And this is an unusual choice for me. It's not something I would normally get, but it was something that I hadn't tried before. So I want to do something a little bit different. And I have to say, it was delightful. Really nice soy-based chicken tenders with a little bit of vegan mozzarella, a really lovely marinara sauce with like chunks of roasted tomato. The sauce, I think, kind of made the sandwich for me.
It was very saucy.
Yeah, it was very saucy. And it was on a wonderfully toasted garlic roll. So,
yeah.
And you really can't go wrong.
You got a side of fries with that?
I did get some fries with that.
And I got, this is kind of crazy, this sandwich. I got the pierogi grilled cheese.
Yes.
So this is actual pierogies, sauerkraut, and cheese. Cooked like a grilled cheese.
Yes.
And then it came with a side of their house-made vegan sour cream to dunk it in. It was very much carb-loaded.
Well, it was a carb fest.
Yeah.
Yes, this was like Christine's favorite combination of things. Pasta, potatoes, cheese, bread, all in one shot.
One shot.
Broken up with a little bit of sauerkraut.
Yeah, it was a carb fest, but it was delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had to try it. Like Sam said, we always try to get different things when we're at restaurants.
Yeah, as much as possible.
Even though we're... I was torn. I love their Reuben.
Right.
But I've had their Reuben a number of times. I'm like, don't get the Reuben. Try something new. And this is something new on their menu. And so I wanted to give it a go.
Never seen this one before. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely new. And it did not disappoint. It was delicious. I also got a side of fries, their fries are great.
They do have really good fries.
Yeah. They're kind of breaded fries. They're like double fried or something.
You think?
Yeah. They have like a coating on them.
Huh. I never thought of them that way.
Yeah, they're good. And then we picked up some cupcakes on our way out.
Yeah. Every time we go to Strong Hearts, we have to grab a few cupcakes on the way out. We never have space to actually eat a cupcake at Strong Hearts.
No.
Because their portion sizes are generous. And so we never have enough room to actually have a cupcake while we're there.
Yeah.
But we always take usually a quartet of cupcakes home with us.
A cupcake quartet.
Indeed.
Which flavors did we get?
Well, the only flavor that was a repeat for us was the chocolate peanut butter.
Which is, if you're ever there, don't sleep on that chocolate peanut butter cupcake. It is really good. If you're a fan of the chocolate peanut butter combo, which I am.
Yes.
It's a good one.
Yeah, it really is. And then I got lemon blueberry.
Right. How was that? I didn't taste it.
It was really nice. It was kind of like almost a blueberry muffiny type cupcake.
Okay.
With this beautiful blueberry compote and wonderful lemon buttercream.
Yeah, and it was a filled cupcake, right?
Yes.
That's
so the
cool.
blueberries ran all the way down into the center. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
I like when a cupcake is filled.
Yeah, me too.
I really do. Mm-hmm. And then... So tonight we tried, which we should have eaten them sooner, but we got 4 cupcakes and how many cupcakes can you eat in a small period of time?
Not that many.
And we were away yesterday. So tonight we split
the French toast cupcake.
Yep. And the other one, which was
the root beer float.
Root beer
cupcake.
Float cupcake. Seriously? They have some crazy flavors.
Really crazy flavors.
Yeah.
And so I had to pick up the root beer float cupcake just because I can't imagine how that happens.
Yeah, so basically it was a vanilla cupcake.
Yes, it was a vanilla cupcake with
all the magic was in the buttercream.
Outstanding root beer buttercream.
Yeah, it was magical.
It was absolutely phenomenal, and it had never occurred to me to make a root beer buttercream.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it really was amazing, and it tasted really kind of genuine. It didn't taste like it was an artificial syrup. So I feel like what they probably did was to take root beer and reduce it.
I'm thinking that's
to get
probably
all the liquid out so that it's really kind of a syrup, and then maybe used that as the flavoring for the buttercream.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking they did, is they'd made a reduction out of some root beer. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they do have a root beer flavoring, but it tasted totally natural.
It did. It was really, really good. And then the French toast cupcake, to me, was just mind-blowing.
Yeah, so this was kind of like a spiced cupcake. And then with this buttercream and kind of caramel drizzle on top, and it did totally taste like French toast.
Totally tasted like French toast.
Yeah, they had the spice combination was like
it
spot
was perfect. It was kind of vanilla. It was kind of cinnamon. It was kind of nutmeg. It was just perfect. Yeah. Absolutely perfect. So I'm glad I listened to the wonderful people behind the counter, because I asked them, okay, we're down to the last cupcake. Should it be cinnamon bun or French toast? And they said French toast. So
yeah, it was good.
It was very good.
Their cupcakes are pretty phenomenal. Yeah. So then after our dinner at Strong Hearts, we made our way to the Alleyway Theater.
Yes, we did. To see
Buffalo.
A production of The Folks at Home, which is a relatively new play. The Alleyway is actually only the second theater in the country to have produced it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, and it just so happened to be directed by a friend and colleague of mine, Dan Lenzian.
Yeah, and it was, I think, a really well done production.
It was.
Now, this show is kind of loosely inspired by sitcoms of the late 60s and 70s. And you could kind of see that.
You definitely got that vibe.
Sitcom feel. It wasn't full on comedy. It was like real life events happening. And then every once in a while, it was really funny.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was really well acted. And the set was great. We had a good time.
Yeah, we did have a good time. I mean, and I enjoyed the play thoroughly, but for me, it really hit its stride in the second act.
Oh, yeah.
Just a few scenes, like there were two mother figures in the play, and they had just an incredible scene together. And then there was a father and son scene where the father is going on and on about Langston Hughes, and that was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
It was almost like most of the comic relief was kind of in the first act. It's like the first act was kind of surface, and then the second act like really got down to like the heart of the matter.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment.
And so it was a really cool progression, and I really enjoyed it. Start to finish. It was great.
Really good show. Really good show. And the Alleyway Theater in Buffalo is a really cool little place.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, so check that out if you're in the Buffalo area.
Yeah, absolutely. We are spoiled, really, in Buffalo for having so many professional theaters.
Yeah, I mean, Buffalo has a fantastic theater district.
Yeah.
So,
and we don't take advantage of it enough. We need to change that.
That's what we were saying, that we don't take advantage of it, and we are going to change that because it's very affordable theater too.
Yes.
You know.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. So that was our Friday.
Yes.
And then Saturday, what did we do Saturday?
Nothing.
We had a chill day.
I made stuffed animals.
Right. Yeah, Sam knitted some cute little animals. And yeah, that's pretty much, we just kind of had a chill Saturday.
It was a chill Saturday.
Yeah, it was nice. It was really nice.
And it was the first chill Saturday I've had since January.
Yeah.
So that was really nice.
Yeah. And then yesterday, we went to my sister's to fulfill her birthday request, which was to cook a vegan meal with her. And we did. We went. I brought all the stuff, and we made that spinach quiche that we talked about on the show a couple of weeks ago. And we also made some roasted baby potatoes.
Can't go wrong
and we
there.
had a side green salad with it. It was really fun. It was fun to cook with my sister because since my parents are gone, we don't get a whole lot of that. We used to get that at the holidays. Yeah. We would all get together and cook.
Yep.
And we're both kind of missing that dynamic. And so it was really fun to cook with her. And I'm glad that she suggested that.
Yeah.
Oh, also, she made these fantastic little tamale bites.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to get the recipe from her because they're vegan
and gluten-free.
Vegan and gluten-free because you use a corn flour.
Right.
And you just make these little balls, and then they are deep fried, but they weren't greasy at all. And they have like corn. They're like little fritters.
Oh, they were so good.
Yeah.
Like they tasted like tamales.
They did.
So good.
Really good. I'll have to get that recipe from her, and then maybe I'll share it here on the show.
Yeah.
Because that was fun. And so we had a really good time. Then
we did.
We played some board games. We played Taco Cat
Goat Cheese Pizza.
Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza, which was a gift that I got my sister.
It's a card game.
It's a card game, and it's really fun.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Until you try to smack the pile in the center and everybody else smacks you way too hard.
But people got a little excited, me included.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mostly you.
Yeah. So like the concept of this game is you get a thing of cards. You don't look at your cards, and you're putting cards down blindly. And as you're putting them down, you're reciting taco, cat,
goat, cheese,
pizza. And if the card you put down matches the word that you said, everybody has to put their hand in really quick, and the person who's the slowest has to keep the cards. So the object of the game is to get rid of all of your cards. Really funny game.
It was.
And then there's special cards that, like, there's a moose where you have to make like this moose head.
You have to make moose antlers.
Symbol.
Yeah.
There's a panda where you have to
rub your belly,
and then put your hand down.
Yep. And then flapjacks, you had to clap twice.
Yeah, flapjacks, which always got me. I don't know. I could not wrap my brain around the fact that flapjacks you were supposed to clap because it just didn't.
No, and it was funny because Trey kept rubbing his stomach every time he saw the flapjacks because it's like, ooh, flapjacks, yummy.
Yeah, my nephew.
Yeah.
I was doing all kinds of crazy things when the flapjack.
You were just a menace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, really fun game. And then after that, we played a game of
Gestures,
which is an older game. And I always forget how fun it is. It's, it's basically a charades game.
Essentially, yeah.
You get this timer that holds the cards, and you have to get your team to say the words on the cards before the cards drop, and then you score accordingly. But that's also a really fun game. I love any game that has any kind of object like that where you're acting things out or whatever. It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was our weekend. It was fun. We had a little downtime. We had a little theater. We had a party.
I tell you.
It was a very well-rounded weekend.
It was.
Yeah. But let's move on. Hey, we don't have a recipe this week just for the sake of time. It's postponed for the sake of time because we have a lot of things we want to talk about today, and I don't want the show to run too long for you.
Alrighty then.
So let's jump into our Noteworthy section. This week's Noteworthy section, we're going to be giving you a little bit of an update on Wayne Hsiung and his upcoming Right to Rescue trial. Recently, the Harvard Law Review published a defense article on his upcoming trial, which is huge. I mean, the Harvard Law Review is like the biggest law publication.
It's no joke, that's for sure.
Yeah, so I thought we would just update you a little bit by reading you what Wayne posted in his blog, his Simple Heart blog. So let's just do that.
Okay. I am known as one of the most optimistic voices in animal rights. Yet there are times when even I am shocked by the rapid pace of progress. Today is one of those days. The Harvard Law Review, the most important legal publication in the nation, published an article by Justin Marceau, one of the leaders in the fight against ag-gag laws, Stefan Seitz, a promising new scholar and lawyer who just graduated from Yale Law, and me, on the right to rescue animals from abuse. If you had told me 5 years ago that I'd be publishing a piece on open rescue in the Harvard Law Review, I'd have laughed. Yet it's now happened, and just weeks before I face my next felony trial on March 18th. And this piece shows that the legal debate over animal rights has become a serious issue. Harvard Law has, historically, rarely published anything on animals. That has begun to change, partly because of the work of my brilliant co-author Justin Marceau. But today's piece is not just about animals. It is a rousing call to see the fight for animal rights as one of the crucial movements of our age, akin to gay rights or women's rights. If Harvard can take the argument for animal rights seriously to the point that it's publishing an article in its flagship journal, then every other lawyer and judge should too. But it's not enough for the argument to be taken seriously by the legal elites. We need you to take it seriously too. Indeed, that is the only way the piece will have the impact that the animals need. As I've argued previously, social movements live or die on their ability to harness networks of ordinary people. Celebrities and influential institutions like Harvard are only important to the extent that they help us build those networks. And that outcome depends crucially on not the lawyers at elite institutions, but you. We need people, like the tens of thousands who read this blog, to see how the arguments made in this piece, taken seriously by the most important legal thinkers in the world, can strengthen your ability to speak out. And how can they do that? There are a few key points from the Harvard piece that you can take home. The first is that, as scary as they seem, the prosecutions of animal rights activists are a crucial tool for social change. As we write in the piece, for at least 150 years, social movements have used voluntary prosecution as a lever to drive legal and social change when other avenues for reform have been blocked. Though under-theorized, the impacts of voluntary prosecution are canonical in American history, from the women's suffrage movement to the civil rights movement. For example, even if Rosa Parks was violating a law when she refused to give up her seat, her arrest and prosecution mobilized the Montgomery bus boycotts, which have been rightly viewed as politically monumental. Criminal cases like Parks can provide a powerful opportunity to rally the troops and mobilize marginalized groups. And they can reverse the traditional accountability rationale of the criminal law, which counsels, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. If the public views the charges, or even the criminal statute itself, as unjust or unlawful, then accountability may come, but in the form of a backlash against the legal system. The prosecutor, the judge, and even the law itself will be held to account when the injustice of a prosecution, or its tension with other more important principles of law, becomes apparent. We need you to harness the stories of these prosecutions to mobilize people for change. You'll have an opportunity on our Day of Action on March 18th. The second point is that progress on animal rights has been blocked, not by ordinary people, but by corrupt systems. This is precisely why activists must thrust ourselves into court cases decided by juries of ordinary people rather than legal and political elites. The vast majority of Americans of all political perspectives, 83% of Democrats, 77% of Republicans, say cruelty to farm animals is a personal moral concern. Yet the vast majority of farm animals are raised in situations that are not just cruel, but constitute torture, according to the New York Times editorial board. Voluntary prosecution aims to force a government response to animal cruelty by highlighting the deficiency of state action to protect animals. Moreover, by placing the decision in the hands of a jury, a non-captured decision-maker, the strategy also avoids the problem of regulatory capture, whereby well-organized industries or interest groups can frustrate efforts at popular change. Corporations such as Smithfield, which have contributed millions of dollars to political campaigns nationwide, have significantly less ability to influence a randomly drawn panel of citizens from the community. The third point is that there is a long history of these so-called voluntary prosecutions in driving change forward. Indeed, there is an argument that they have been crucial to every major expansion of legal rights in American history. Susan B. Anthony's trial is particularly illuminating, and when I was researching her case, it felt eerily similar to the trials of Open Rescue. This includes her insistence that her attempts to vote were legal, despite the consensus at the time that she was obviously breaking the law. Anthony, despite engaging in an act that was legally disruptive, grounded her defiance in constitutional and legal principles. While the Constitution and common law had not been tested on the question of sex discrimination, the text was, in theory, quite clear. No person should be denied equal protection of the laws. Anthony could thus plausibly argue that her act of voting was an affirmation rather than a violation of the law. Anthony also had technical legal arguments to buttress her case, even if the judge and jury refused her constitutional argument. Most notably, she argued that her good faith belief in the legality of her vote undermined the charges against her because violation of the Voting Act required a knowing illegal vote. This will all sound very familiar if you've been closely following the right to rescue trials. Contrary to the prosecution's claims, the law is quite clear. We are entitled, under the necessity defense, to act in an emergency to prevent a significant bodily harm or evil to someone else. That is exactly what we do when we rescue animals from abuse. Prosecutors and judges, of course, have argued that someone does not include animals, but they are simply wrong. Indeed, they have been widely mocked, including by Vox's Marina Bolotnikova, when they have compared injured animals to dented cans. More ambitiously, our right to rescue animals has constitutional origins, including the Fifth Amendment's guarantee that no person shall be deprived of life or liberty without due process of law. The right to rescue isn't radical or disruptive. Once we recognize that animals are persons, it's a direct implication of existing law, a constitutional right. The fourth and last point is the most important, however. To truly change the law, we need people who are willing to break it. If animal rights efforts are to gain momentum in law, they may need help from activists who are willing to test the boundaries of the law and even risk being deemed outside the law. Such projects are important not only to test the bounds of existing positive law, but also to elevate the status of the animal rights law agenda more generally. Voluntary prosecution can highlight the defects of existing legal norms and generate a public affirmation of behavior that pushes the boundaries of respectability. The public attention that a criminal trial can command serves as a megaphone for messages that might otherwise seem marginal. It provides a novel set of outreach opportunities, and, in the context of animal rights, it recasts legal arguments about animals as beings who matter in defensive, anti-carceral postures that may resonate with the public more strongly than conventional tools of legal reform. By inviting charges for breaking the law, voluntary prosecution is a crucial tool for making it. Our legal and moral arguments are, in fact, logically correct. Any second-grade student knows there is a difference between a dented can and a sentient being. And if an embryo or a corporation is a person, then surely a dog can be as well. But the truth is that most systems do not work on logic. They work on emotion, momentum, and power. I'm facing very serious consequences in the upcoming cases, and the reason I'm not just moving forward but positively excited is because these cases have the ability to harness those more fundamental forces to create change. I hope you'll read the piece, learn its lessons, and join us on March 18th. The future of animal rights is bright, as the Harvard piece today shows, but it will depend on you to carry that light forward.
Yes, and we will link to the piece in the Harvard Law Review so that you can read it yourself. I just want to thank Wayne and the people like him that are willing to put themselves in these positions to bring these things to the forefront.
Yes.
To, like he said, to appeal to people's emotions so that the laws can change. A lot of people don't really agree with his type of advocacy. There is a lot of people that push back on this sort of kind of martyrdom advocacy. But I too used to be a little bit kind of wishy-washy on whether or not this was a really effective way to advocate for animals. But the more I read about it and the deeper he seems to go with this, the more I truly believe he's on the right track.
Yeah.
And the more I appreciate Wayne and people like him that are willing to put their lives on hold. He's risking losing his law license. He's risking up to like 18 years in prison for this to make this point that animals are not dented tin cans.
Right.
They're not things. They're people.
Yes.
You know? So, yeah. So like I said, we'll link to the Harvard Law Review article and you can read that for yourself.
And per usual, we wish Wayne and all of his fellow advocates all the best.
Yeah.
Keep fighting the good fight.
The trial is on March 18th, and we'll keep you posted on that. You should, if you would like to, subscribe to his blog, the Simple Heart blog. We'll include a link to that, too, if you'd like to subscribe and read along with his journey.
Yeah, he's a wonderful writer.
That brings us to our main topic.
You've picked a doozy for this week.
Yeah, this main topic it's kind of a heavy one. This week's main topic is veganism and religion.
So what brought you towards this topic?
Well, I don't know if you've heard, but there's a film that has just been released by the makers of Cowspiracy and a number of other...
Seaspiracy, What the Health.
A number of other documentaries. And it's called Christspiracy.
Mm-hmm. Kip and Keegan are at it again.
Yeah, and a lot of people who have seen it say it's pretty mind-blowing. So it gave me the impetus to look at things regarding veganism and religion. Mm-hmm. I know that his film debunks all kinds of stuff. People say it's mind-blowing how much stuff it debunks.
I really can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I can't either. And it's not being released on Netflix. For some reason, they turned Netflix money down, and they're releasing in limited theaters around the country.
Right.
So you can go to the Christspiracy website and check to see where you can see it near you.
Yeah, the closest showing to us was in Williamsville, New York, which is where we got married almost 12 years ago.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we can't go because I have to be in a tech rehearsal that night.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's just like a one-night showing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I'm hoping that further down the line that they make it, more broadly available for people to watch because I really want to see it.
Me too.
I really want to see it. But that was the impetus for today's main topic.
Alrighty then. Well, so we're going to start off with just dietary practices in a number of different religions. The relationship between religion and dietary practice is a complex and multifaceted aspect of human history, with various faiths developing diverse attitudes towards food consumption, including vegetarianism and veganism. Here's a brief exploration of how different religions have approached dietary practice throughout history.
Yeah, let's just touch on a few of these. Let's start with Hinduism.
Yeah, it will come as no surprise to many of you, I'm sure, that the roots of veganism and vegetarianism, they run deep in Hinduism and Jainism in particular.
Yes.
So the central belief of Hinduism is that of ahimsa, which is nonviolence. And so many Hindus practice vegetarianism as a means of respecting all forms of life and avoiding harm to animals.
Yeah.
Now, most Hindus are not vegan. Many of them consume dairy, and dietary practices can vary on cultural and regional factors.
Yeah. And you also, you already touched on it, but Jainism also has that emphasis on ahimsa. Mm-hmm. And its followers tend to adhere strictly to a vegetarian diet. And some Jains might even follow a vegan diet, avoiding all animal products, including dairy, in order to minimize harm to living beings.
Yes. And Jainism is even more complicated when it comes to food because you can't eat root vegetables, garlic. There are certain beans that are off the table.
Right. Things that are the beginnings of life.
Beginnings of life.
Are even removed from their diet.
Yeah. So in terms of diet, Jainism is really complicated.
Can be. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Buddhism, which sprouted from Hinduism, did not explicitly prescribe vegetarianism. It did, however, emphasize mindfulness and compassion toward all beings. As Buddhism spread to different regions, dietary practices varied, with some Buddhist communities adopting vegetarianism or veganism as a means of practicing compassion, which, of course, is one of the central tenets of the Buddhist faith.
Yeah, and I mean, you will see that in this compassion thing intertwined for all,
Yes.
For all, what's the word I'm looking for? Organized.
All organized religions. Yes.
Okay, the next one we're going to talk about is Judaism. In Judaism, dietary laws are outlined in the Torah, with kosher dietary practices specifying which foods are permitted and prohibited. While Jews are not required to be vegetarian, there are specific guidelines regarding the slaughter and consumption of animals, emphasizing humane treatment and respect for life. And we all know how most vegans feel about that. There's no such thing as humane slaughter.
Oh,
but
yes,
yeah.
Absolutely. I wasn't sure where you were going with that for a second, but yes, you're absolutely right. I agree. There's no such thing as humane slaughter.
Yeah.
That brings us to Christianity. Christian dietary practices have varied throughout history and across different denominations. While there are no strict dietary laws in Christianity, like in Judaism, some individuals and communities practice vegetarianism or fasting as a spiritual discipline or as a means of expressing compassion toward animals.
Right. Like, where is it in California?
Oh, in Loma Linda.
In Loma Linda.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they don't adhere to veganism because of animals,
no,
so to speak. It's more of like their
more
bodies,
spiritual / health related.
Their bodies are temples, and they don't want to put
correct
dead animals into their body. So it is more of a me kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't eat meat or eggs or dairy nonetheless.
That's right.
Islamic dietary laws, known as halal, dictate what foods are permissible for Muslims to eat. While meat is allowed, it must be prepared in accordance with halal guidelines, including humane slaughter practices. While vegetarianism is not explicitly encouraged in Islam, there are traditions of fasting, such as during Ramadan, which may involve abstaining from meat.
Finally, we have Sikhism. Sikhs do not have specific dietary restrictions, but they are encouraged to follow a simple and wholesome diet. Many Sikhs are lacto-vegetarians, avoiding meat, but consuming dairy products.
Yeah, so there's just we explored a little bit about the different diets in different religions. There are a ton more religions out there that I'm sure we could talk about. Do you have any firsthand knowledge of people of any of those religions? Like, have you been around people of any of those religions and had experience like eating out with them or?
No, not particularly. Thing is, I don't generally ask about people's faith.
Well, no, I know, but a lot of times people will bring it up. I do know one time, this was years ago, you had something where you had some international students come, and you did have one student that was Jain.
Oh, no, there were several Jain students.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. You're absolutely right. And we were making food.
Right.
To take on a little day excursion.
Right.
Kind of thing. Yes. And we had to make sure that we made the food within Jain parameters.
Right.
Yeah. I'd forgotten about that. Good memory.
I'm surprised I remember it.
I'm floored. That's right. We had some exchange students from India during the summer.
Yeah.
One year.
Yeah.
And, a colleague and I were taking them on a bit of a day hike or something like that. And we made food.
Yeah, it was part of an exchange, right? Mm-hmm. Like when you went to India and then you brought kids to India on a different occasion.
Right.
And then they sent
the following summer
kids from Pune here.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. And many of them were Jain?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay, next I think we're going to talk a little bit about biblical views. Now, this is the Christian Bible we're speaking of. The Christian Bible contains several passages that touch on themes of vegetarianism and animal welfare, though we all know like the interpretations of those passages can vary among different religious traditions and denominations. So we'll just give you a few of the key references that vegans can pull. Say if a Christian tells you that the Bible tells you you're supposed to eat meat. Here's a few things that you can reply with.
First, we start with Genesis, chapter 1, verses 29 to 30. In the creation story, God gives Adam and Eve dominion over the animals and grants them plants for food. Then God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds in the sky, and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has the breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food. This passage is often cited as evidence of an original vegetarian diet in the Garden of Eden.
It does. I mean, I think that's pretty explicit.
I think it states that pretty clearly, yes.
Yeah. Then there's one in Genesis. It's actually Genesis chapter 9, 1:4. After the flood, God gives Noah and his descendants permission to eat meat. Everything that lives and moves about will be food for you. Just as I gave you the green plants, I now give you everything. Some interpret this passage as a departure from that original statement, granting them the ability to eat meat because they are under, dire circumstances because of this flood.
Right.
Right?
Right. And I should say, just going back to Genesis 1:29 for a second, that God gives Adam and Eve dominion over the animals. A lot of people take that word, dominion, as meaning we can do with the animals whatever we like.
Right.
Including eating them.
Right.
Right.
But, I mean, my interpretation of it is God was giving them the job of protecting all of the beings.
I like to believe that as well.
Yeah.
But the word dominion is a little bit dodgy if we're thinking about it in a caretaking way.
Yeah.
Just because of its reference to the word dominance.
Yeah, I mean, and here's where things get lost in translation.
Oh,
right?
Sure. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Moving forward, we have the book of Isaiah, chapter 11, verses 6-9. This passage speaks of a future time of peace, where predatory animals will live peacefully alongside prey. The wolf will live with the lamb, the leopard will lie down with the goat, and the calf and the lion and the yearling together, and a little child will lead them. This vision of harmony among animals is often interpreted as an indication of God's ultimate desire for compassion and peaceful coexistence.
Yeah, my interpretation of that really has nothing to do with food or animals at all. It really is just a statement of peace.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, I completely agree.
Just in my opinion.
Yes. And if you kind of take that out to its inevitable conclusion, the idea of creating hierarchy and the idea of subjugating certain animals in favor of others, that is absolutely antithetical to compassion and peaceful coexistence.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Then we have Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 12, verse 10. The righteous care for the needs of their animals, but the kindest acts of the wicked are cruel. This verse emphasizes the importance of compassion and care for animals, suggesting that mistreatment of animals is contrary to righteousness, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I agree. There's not a whole lot of interpretation in that one.
No, it's kind of all there for you.
That's pretty straightforward. Yeah. And finally, for our biblical references, we have Daniel chapter 1, verses 8-16. In this passage, Daniel and his companions refuse to eat the king's rich food and instead request a diet of vegetables and water. After a trial period, they are found to be healthier than those who ate the king's food. This story is often cited as an example of the benefits of a vegetarian diet.
And this can be historically proven as fact, right?
Yes.
Okay? Mm-hmm. Because no offense to people who believe everything in the Bible as fact. To me, they're stories passed down from generation to generation to generation, right?
I agree, yes.
But this verse in particular definitely... It screams facts, right? We all know that the kings and the queens of old in the 15th century or the 16th century and beyond, they subsisted mostly on rich meats and puddings. And
yes, this is true. You're absolutely right. So the diet of the wealthy from the dawn of the wealthy has been primarily that of meats, fats, breads, those kinds of things.
Right.
Vegetables and grains were essentially thought of as peasant food.
Right.
Yes. But the peasants, though they may not have had as many options because they couldn't afford meat, etc.,
right,
were actually consuming a far healthier diet than their wealthy counterparts.
Yeah, they were, which is why so many kings and queens suffered from gout and gout,
diabetes, heart disease.
Yeah, any number of maladies because of their excessive meat eating.
Yes. Well, I mean, that hasn't changed.
It really hasn't, has it?
No. Except now it's become more pervasive among everyone.
Right, because now everyone's eating like kings and queens.
Right.
Stop it.
Except, now it's fast food instead of being cooked in, a really fantastic kitchen over a massive stone fireplace for hours and hours at a time.
Those castle kitchens, wow, they're great.
Oh, they're amazing.
Yeah, we've been to a few castles in the UK, and the kitchens are always the most fascinating place for me. It's like, oh, and here's this grand hall. I'm like, that's great, but can we go back to the kitchen? Because they're just amazing.
Because I want to go back to that fireplace I can stand in.
Yeah, right? They're these huge fireplaces and all this. There was probably like 20, 30 people working in there.
Oh, yeah. At least.
At any given time. But they're just amazing kitchens.
They are.
Let's move on to some cultural influences as far as religion and veganism go.
Okay. So dietary practices within religious communities are profoundly influenced by a variety of cultural factors, including geography, history, and social norms. Here's a bit of an analysis of these influences across different religious communities. First, geography. Geographical location plays a significant role in determining the availability of certain foods and the agricultural practices prevalent in a region. For example, coastal regions may have diets rich in sea life, while inland areas might rely more on grains and vegetables. Additionally, access to specific ingredients and the local climate influence dietary preferences. For instance, in tropical regions, fruits and vegetables may be abundant and therefore feature prominently in the diet.
History can also play a huge part, right?
Oh, yeah.
Historical events, migrations, and interactions with other cultures will shape the dietary practices of religious communities. Like the spread of Islam led to the adoption of dietary laws, the halal that we were talking about earlier, governing what foods are permissible for Muslims to eat. Colonialism and trade routes also introduced new foods and culinary techniques to various religious groups. The historical exchange has influenced the diversity of dietary practices within religious communities and, dare I say, may have ruined the dietary practices of many, many communities. Colonialism.
Oh, well, colonialism ruined a lot of things.
I know, but right now we're just talking about diet.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying you can put colonialism and ruined in just about any sentence and it would be true.
Right. That is true.
Okay. Now, social norms within religious communities often dictate what is considered appropriate or acceptable to eat. These norms are reinforced through communal practices, rituals, and teachings. Food is frequently intertwined with cultural identity and religious symbolism, leading to the preservation of traditional dietary customs. For example, certain Hindu communities abstain from consuming beef due to the reverence for cows. Social gatherings and festivals often revolve around specific foods, reinforcing their significance within the community. These communal meals strengthen social bonds and serve as a means of transmitting cultural values across generations.
Yeah, and just think how much your own culture within your own family has influenced your food choices throughout your life, right?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, the culture of just about every American family has been influenced by many other cultures around them.
Sure.
I come from an Irish family. That doesn't mean we eat only traditional Irish food.
No.
Far from it.
No. But in my family back in the day, on, say, Christmas Eve, we did the whole 7 fishes thing. Right. And it's a Catholic thing, right? Mm-hmm. And both Sam and I were raised in our early years as Catholics.
Yes.
My family, my parents left the Catholic Church when I was fairly young and joined a spiritualist church.
Right.
And were spiritualists throughout the rest of their lives. Mm-hmm. Your family was Catholic, but then just kind of fell out of Catholicism, which a lot of Catholics have done.
Well, no, right? I think everybody just kind of finally admitted they weren't Catholic after my grandparents passed.
Right. Because they were
to a certain degree.
They were the ones that encouraged everyone to go to church every Sunday.
My grandparents were hardcore Catholics.
Yeah. I went as far as catechism, and then shortly after catechism, my parents left the Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. When I was very young, all the masses were still in Latin.
Oh, wow.
Just imagine being like a 5 or 6 year old sitting through a Catholic Latin mass.
Okay.
It's the epitome of boredom.
Knowing me, I would have thought that was really cool.
You probably would have thought it was cool.
The Latin math, I think I would have thought that was really cool.
You probably would have been like interpreting it, right?
I would have done my best. Yeah, I would have been like, I must learn Latin.
I was like, this is the most boring thing I could possibly be doing with my time right now. And I have to wear a dress. Come on.
Oh, yeah.
It's the worst.
Two strikes right there.
Another thing culturally, religious teachings. Religious scriptures and teachings frequently contain guidelines regarding food, like I was talking about the 7 fishes and whatnot, and dietary restrictions. For example, the Jewish dietary laws, the kashrut, outlined in the Torah, dictate what foods are considered kosher and how they should be prepared. These religious teachings often reflect broader spiritual principles such as compassion, purity, or sacrifice, which shape dietary practices accordingly.
And finally, something that affects everyone's food choices, economic considerations. These also influence dietary practices within religious communities and non-religious communities. Socioeconomic status can impact access to certain foods, leading to variations in diet among different socioeconomic groups within the same religious community. So this again goes back to, let's think about England at the time of the early Northern Renaissance and the English Reformation, where everyone is the same faith.
Right.
Well, at least at the beginning.
Right.
Yes. And so everyone agrees on the faith. Everyone is Catholic, but there are vast differences in the types of food that people are eating, and it's based almost solely on socioeconomics.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Furthermore, globalization and modernization have led to changes in dietary habits, with processed foods becoming more prevalent, especially in urban areas.
Now, like I was saying before, when we were talking about the biblical references, that some of this knowledge gives you opportunities for interfaith dialogue.
Sure.
Right? And it gives you an opportunity to have good conversations with people that will come at you. Like I said, used as an example, the Bible says we're supposed to eat meat, or the Bible says that God gave us animals to eat, right? So interfaith dialogues and collaboration around ethical eating practices can be facilitated by highlighting shared values and common goals among different religious traditions. So here's some of these opportunities for just such a collaboration. Respect for creation. Many religious traditions share a common value of respecting the earth and its resources. Collaborative efforts can focus on promoting sustainable agriculture, reducing food waste, and advocating for environmentally friendly food production methods.
This next one is, of course, my favorite: compassion and nonviolence. Most religions emphasize compassion and nonviolence towards all living beings. This can form the basis for advocating vegetarianism or veganism, as well as supporting humane treatment of animals in food production.
And social justice. Religious teachings often emphasize the importance of addressing social inequalities and promoting justice, right? Collaborative initiatives can work towards ensuring fair wages and working conditions for farm workers, as well as addressing food insecurities and access to nutritious food for all communities.
Many religious traditions promote practices that support physical and spiritual well-being. Collaboration can involve promoting healthier eating habits, advocating for nutritious and culturally appropriate food options, and raising awareness about the connection between diet and health.
Yeah, and food is community, right? I mean, we found that.
Is.
And as vegans, our community is often around food, right? We come together around vegan food. Sharing meals is a common practice across different religions as a way of fostering community and hospitality. Interfaith dialogue can focus on celebrating food traditions. You can share recipes and organize community meals that bring people from different backgrounds together. And that's what a lot of vegan potlucks do, right?
Oh, gosh, yes. Yeah, they're pretty awesome. Religious teachings often emphasize the importance of stewardship and gratitude for the blessings of food. Collaborative efforts can involve promoting mindfulness in eating, gratitude practices, and rituals around food that deepen appreciation for the interconnectedness of all life.
And most importantly, education, right? When it comes to things like this. Interfaith collaboration can involve educational initiatives aimed at raising awareness about ethical implications of food choices. This can include workshops, seminars, and community events that explore the ethical, environmental, and social dimensions of food production and its consumption.
And there you have it.
Yeah. So, this Christspiracy movie focuses solely on, it's in the name, Jesus Christ.
Yes.
And apparently debunks a lot of myths around the life of Jesus Christ. If you've seen this movie, please reach out to us and give us your synopsis. I would like to know what you think of it, what questions it raised for you. Mm-hmm. Should we go see it or not? Do you think it's a film that we should go see? Do you think it's a film that we should see and review?
Alrighty then.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I think it is.
Yeah, because I think that the topic of veganism and religion is really super interesting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and as someone who has read a lot of religious texts, I've read the Bible, I've read the Torah, I've read the Quran, I've read the Hindu scriptures, I've read Buddhist texts, I've read pagan texts, transcendentalist texts, you name it.
Right.
Because the idea of the divine fascinates me, absolutely fascinates me. And what I've realized from reading all of these different texts is, sure, the stories are different, the literature is different, the characters are different, but at the center, they're all the same.
It's all the same story, isn't it?
It's really all the same story.
Yeah.
Told in myriad ways and wonderful, fascinating ways.
Sure.
And so I find it really interesting that religion is so often used as a barrier. Like it's another way of saying us and them.
Right.
You know?
Oh, I mean, religion is responsible for so much of the war in the world, right?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about that. But that...
Or at least used as an excuse.
Sure.
I don't think that it's really what's behind most of the war in the world.
Yeah.
But it's used, I think.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
You know, to point out differences.
Yeah. But that really, despite the divisiveness that can come between different sects of organized religion, that really the tenets, the basic foundation of all organized religions are the same.
Yeah.
And they all come from a place of interconnectedness, compassion, kindness, service,
right,
reverence. And those are all good things.
They are good things. And I'll take it as far as to say that I think that veganism really could be considered a religion in its own right. I mean, it is definitely a creed. It's definitely it's definitely a group of beliefs, right?
Sure. But I would call it an ethic, not a religion.
I suppose, yeah.
Just because there's no deity.
Right. The deity is compassion.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes. And so I would consider it an ethic.
Yeah.
Not a religion. But I think that's fine. Everyone. And you can be a vegan and be any religion or be no religion at all.
Right. Yeah, we're not any specific religion. So.
I mean, I will often refer to myself as half witch, half yogi.
Right.
But no, neither of us is involved in any kind of organized religion.
Right. We're both spiritual people.
Very much so.
But no organized religion for us. No. I can't even organize my own life, so.
Isn't that the truth? Oh my God, truer words were never spoken. That's amazing.
There is, like I said, so many things we can say about religion and veganism. We just wanted to touch on a few points since it's been in my peripheral, all this stuff about Christspiracy and stuff. So I'm sure we'll touch on this subject a little bit more in the future.
I'm sure we will.
But let's move on to our helpful tip to help you encourage others to go vegan and stay vegan.
This one's a simple one. Be patient and persistent. Understand that change takes time and that not everyone will immediately embrace veganism. Be patient, persistent, and resilient in your advocacy efforts and celebrate small victories along the way.
Yeah, that's definitely good advice. Patience is not a virtue that I have, but...
Wow, again, Christine is just speaking truth today. Wow.
Okay, now it's time for our favorite part of the show.
Hey, must be listener shout-out time.
It's listener shout-out.
Just want to give a shout-out to all my fans watching. I love you guys. I love you.
This week, we're shouting out Stephanie Jenko. Stephanie's mom, Sharon, nominated her for a shout-out. Steph has her own podcast called Be Well with Steph. She's a plant-based coach and elementary school teacher. She's also in the midst of planning her upcoming wedding, which is so exciting. Congratulations, Steph. And thank you for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening, Stephanie, and contact us with your t-shirt size and address so we can send you a CNC swag bag. You can email us that information to compassionandcucumbers@gmail.com or DM us on Instagram or private message us on Facebook. I'm just loving these mothers nominating their daughters.
It's so great.
Right?
Totally. It's so great.
That's 2 in a row.
I love it. And for the rest of you out there, if you would like a listener shout out, please email or DM us. Let us know what you think of the show and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Moving on to our vegan org of the week. This week's vegan org of the week is Arthur's Acres Farm Sanctuary. They're in Parksville, New York.
Rescuing and providing sanctuary for dozens of pigs and other animals, their mission is to rescue those that have been abused, exploited, or discarded, to rehabilitate through patience, love, and respect, and to educate individuals on leading cruelty-free lives through daily choices.
Yeah, and they have a really good origin story. Can you read their origin story?
Happy to. On an uncomfortably hot afternoon in late summer of 2018, a friend and I arrived at the property to look at land for sale, hoping it would fit the bill to create a sanctuary. Upon arrival, we found out from the agent that the property had been used as a small-scale farm-to-table type facility. Pigs, goats, and other small animals had been raised and slaughtered right here on the property. Like a real-time horror show, as he explained this to us, the property immediately showed its dark side. We began opening doors and came across remains of animals, decomposing birds, cutting tools, and bone saws. Blood stained the walls, and the windows were barricaded, letting in no light. The smell of death and urine was so great in some areas it was overwhelming. A deep chill went through me. So deep, I shuddered at the thought of its awful past. The agent mentioned that there might be some animals still here, a pig, maybe. I insisted we find him immediately. That is when I met Arthur, a beautiful 3.5-month-old piglet who was locked in a holding pen with no fresh food or water and no mother in sight. He came right to me, looking me in the face as if to ask my intentions. I knew it immediately. I am not leaving without this pig. Once the agent realized I was completely serious, we negotiated with the owner to surrender him to me. Then and there, I knew this was the place. It felt as if all of the animals, past and present on this property, were calling to us in that moment and asking us to help them. Arthur was their face, their voice. We knew we could do just that. And so the journey began. Arthur's Acres now stands, no longer a negative place, but one with an abundance of love, kindness, positivity, and compassion. Arthur, who was the last pig to be threatened with death at this place, is the first pig to receive sanctuary here. The place where Arthur was meant to die young and afraid will be the place where he learns to live, to love, and to be loved in return. He will welcome new friends. He will be a teacher. He will grow old here. And finally, he will die in his own bed, surrounded by people who love him. That's amazing.
Isn't it, though? I just love their story. And that is
so beautiful.
That is in the words of their founder, Todd Friedman. Beautifully written story about how he saw this property. And I can't even imagine finding that pig, and I'm sure before they found that pig, he was probably ready to walk away and never think of that place again. Mm-hmm. But wow, it was like divine intervention. Mm-hmm. Speaking of religion, that little Arthur was in there all by himself, and that was it. That started it all. You know,
some things are just meant to happen, I guess.
Yeah. So if you'd like to support Arthur's Acres or find out more about what they do there, you can go to arthursacresanimalsanctuary.org. Hey, it's time to wrap this baby up. Just a few calls to action for you. Please join the Agriculture Fairness Alliance Vegan Voter Hub like we always ask you every show. The link is in our show notes. Also, subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, and leave us a review and a rating if you want. Send us your favorite vegan recipes for our listener recipe series so we can try your recipes on the show and talk about them.
And with that, it's time to sign off. You have just listened to episode 129 of the Compassion and Cucumbers podcast, and there's nothing left to say but where cukes and compassion are always the fashion on the podcast.
Thanks, James.
Have a great week, everyone.
We'll talk to you next Tuesday.
We love you.
We really do. Bye.
The end.
If you'd like to support the Compassion and Cucumbers podcast, well, you can do that by hopping on over to our Patreon page and becoming a patron. We have all the recipes from our Vegan Kitchen series up there, and we'll be adding some patron-only episodes in the near future. So thank you for supporting us at whatever level that you choose, and thank you again for listening to Compassion and Cucumbers podcast.